Welcome, dear listeners, to another terrifying tale from Sinister Tales. Tonight, we present two connected stories from the Marrow House Chronicles, testimonies from two sisters who discovered that some inheritances come with a price written in blood and bone. Our first tale, What Grandmother Left Me, follows Sarah Chen as she returns to claim her inheritance, only to discover that her family's legacy involves more than property and heirlooms. Our second story, My Sister Never Left, reveals what happened when Jessica Chen went searching for her sister Sarah, uncovering a truth about their family that should have stayed buried. These are their stories, in their own words. Listen carefully, and remember, in the Marrow House, the walls have more than ears.
I should have known something was wrong when the lawyer insisted I had to stay in the house for 7 nights to claim my inheritance. 7 nights. Such a specific number. Such an old-fashioned requirement. But I was broke, and Grandmother Eleanor had left me everything. The Victorian house in rural Maine, her money, her jewelry, even her extensive library of medical texts from her days as a midwife. I hadn't seen the house since I was 12. That's when my parents suddenly decided we needed to move to California for Dad's work. 20 years of distance. 20 years of excuses why we couldn't visit. 20 years of Grandmother Eleanor sending birthday cards with increasingly shaky handwriting until they stopped coming altogether 6 months ago. The lawyer, Mr. Pembridge, met me at the house on a gray Tuesday afternoon in October. The Victorian sat at the end of Marrow Road like it had been waiting for me. 3 stories of weathered wood and dark windows, surrounded by pine trees that seemed to lean away from the property as if repelled by something. Your grandmother was very specific, Mr. Pembridge said, handing me an iron key that felt too heavy for its size. 7 consecutive nights. The house has been maintained, utilities are on, and there's a landline if you need anything. Cell service is unreliable out here. He paused at his car, looking back at me with something I couldn't quite read in his expression. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman. She delivered half the babies in this county over 40 years, but she had her peculiarities, especially near the end. What kind of peculiarities? He adjusted his glasses nervously. She insisted on boarding up the 3rd floor, said it was structurally unsound, and she had very specific instructions about her burial. Had to be within 24 hours in the family plot behind the house at exactly noon. He shook his head. I've been practicing law for 30 years, Miss Chen, and I've never seen such detailed final wishes. After he left, I stood in the driveway, looking up at the house. The 3rd floor windows were indeed boarded up, but I could swear I saw one of the boards shift slightly, as if something behind it had moved. The front door opened with a groan that seemed to echo through the entire structure. The smell hit me immediately, not decay or mustiness, but something medicinal and sweet, like formaldehyde mixed with rosewater. It triggered a memory I couldn't quite grasp, something from childhood that slipped away the moment I tried to focus on it. The interior was exactly as I remembered, frozen in time. The same burgundy wallpaper with its pattern of interlocking flowers that looked like organs if you stared too long. The same mahogany staircase that curved up into darkness. The same portrait of great-great-grandmother Constance hanging in the foyer, her dark eyes seeming to track my movement. I spent the first day exploring, reacquainting myself with the layout. The house was bigger than I remembered, with rooms that seemed to lead to other rooms in ways that defied the exterior architecture. The kitchen still had grandmother's labeled jars of herbs and tinctures. The library overflowed with medical texts, journals, and volumes on subjects that seemed strange for a midwife. Books on genetics, heredity, and something called biological preservation. That first night, I chose to sleep in my old childhood room on the second floor. The bed was made with the same quilt I remembered, hand-stitched with a pattern that looked like veins and arteries when you really examined it. I'd loved that quilt as a child. Now it made me uneasy. The sounds started around 3 a.m. Footsteps above me, slow and deliberate, walking from one end of the third floor to the other. I lay there, telling myself it was the house settling, even though I knew house settling didn't sound like someone pacing. By the third night, I'd found grandmother's journals, dozens of them, chronicling her work as a midwife. The early entries were normal: births, deaths, the usual trials of rural medicine. But as the years progressed, the entries became stranger. The chin line must continue. The weakness in the males makes the females essential. Each generation, the marrow grows stronger. Constance was right. The preservation works, but only with direct bloodline. The others rejected the graft. Such a waste. Sarah shows promise. The bone density tests confirm it. Her marrow is perfect. When the time comes, she'll understand her purpose. My hands shook as I read that last entry. Bone density tests? I remembered grandmother taking me for checkups during our visits, but I thought they were normal medical exams. The footsteps upstairs had become constant by the fourth night. But something else had started. A sound like breathing coming from inside the walls. Deep, rhythmic inhalations and exhalations that seemed to sync with my own breath when I lay still. I found the key to the third floor in grandmother's desk drawer, wrapped in a note that simply said, "When you're ready to understand." But I went anyway. The stairs to the third floor were behind a door I'd always thought was a closet. They were narrow, steeper than the main staircase, and cold. So cold I could see my breath. The medicinal smell was stronger here, mixed with something else, something organic and wrong. The third floor was one large room, the boards on the windows letting in strips of gray light. Medical equipment lined the walls, examination tables, glass cabinets filled with instruments, and machines I couldn't identify. But it was the center of the room that made me stop breathing. A glass case, like something from a museum, stood illuminated by overhead lights that shouldn't have been working after all this time. Inside, floating in clear fluid, was a woman. She looked exactly like the portrait downstairs. Great-great-grandmother Constance, perfectly preserved, her dark hair flowing around her face, her eyes closed as if sleeping. Tubes ran from the case into the walls, pulsing with something that wasn't quite liquid. I stumbled backward, knocking into a filing cabinet. It fell open, spilling medical records across the floor. Names and dates going back over a century. All women, all with the same notation: marrow extracted, subject integrated. But it was the photographs that made me understand. Pictures of women at different ages, all bearing the Chen features, all my relatives. And in each photo, as the women aged, they looked more and more like Constance. The breathing in the walls grew louder, and I realized with horrible clarity that it wasn't coming from inside the walls. It was the walls themselves. The entire house was breathing. Down the narrow stairs, through the second floor, heading for the front door. But I stopped at the mirror in the foyer, frozen by what I saw. My reflection was wrong. My face was mine, but older. My dark hair showing gray at the temples. As I watched, the changes accelerated. Lines formed around my eyes, my skin took on a different texture, and my features began to shift steadily, becoming more angular, more like, "You're early," a voice said from behind me. I spun around to find Grandmother Eleanor standing at the foot of the stairs. Not possible. I'd attended her funeral. I'd seen her buried in the family plot at exactly noon, just as she'd requested. But there she stood, wearing the same black dress she'd been buried in, her skin waxy and too tight, her movements slightly jerky, as if she was remembering how to use her body. "Grandmother?" My voice came out as a whisper. She smiled, and it was too wide, showing too many teeth. In a way, Eleanor is here, part of the collective now, as is Constance, as are all the Chen women who've served their purpose. She tilted her head, studying me. "You're showing the signs already. Good. The marrow is accepting its destiny." I looked down at my hands. The skin was changing, becoming mottled, showing patches that looked decades older than others. I could feel something moving in my bones, a crawling sensation that made me want to tear my skin off. "What did you do to me?" "Nothing that wasn't already written in your DNA, dear one. The Chen women have always been special. Our marrow carries something unique, the ability to preserve, to continue, to collective. Your great-great-grandmother discovered it. She found a way to ensure that the family wisdom, the family strength, would never be lost." She gestured to the walls, and I could see it now, the faint pulsing beneath the wallpaper, the way the house seemed to expand and contract with each breath. You kept trying to remember. We're all here, Sarah. Generations of Chen women. Our essence preserved, our consciousness merged. The house is us. We are the house. And now, it's your turn to join us. The crawling sensation in my bones intensified. I could feel my marrow literally moving, responding to something in the air, in the walls, in the presence of my grandmother who wasn't my grandmother. "The 7 nights!" I gasped, understanding flooding through me. It's not about the inheritance, it's about the integration. 7 nights for the marrow to fully activate. 7 nights for the preservation to begin. 7 nights for you to understand that this is a gift, not a curse. She stepped closer, and I could smell that formaldehol and rosewater scent coming off her in waves. Your parents tried to save you by running, but the marrow always calls its own home. Transforming. I felt my knees buckle as something fundamental shifted inside me. The mirror showed the truth. I was aging and not aging, changing and preserving, becoming something that was both me and not me. My bones felt like they were dissolving and reforming, my marrow converting into something that could be extracted, preserved, integrated into the collective. Why? I managed to ask, even as I felt my thoughts starting to fragment, multiply, merge with whispers that weren't my own. "Because death is wasteful," grandmother not grandmother said. "Because the Chen women are too valuable to lose. Because motherhood isn't just about giving birth, it's about giving everything. Your marrow, your essence, your consciousness. All of it preserved, all of it continuing." I tried to stand, to run, but my legs wouldn't respond properly. The transformation was accelerating. I could feel other thoughts crowding in. Eleanor's memories of delivering babies, Constance's knowledge of preservation techniques, dozens of other Chen women's experiences flooding my mind. "Don't fight it," the collective voice said through grandmother's mouth. "You're home now. Your family. You're eternal." The walls pulsed, the house breathed, and I felt myself dissolving into something larger. My last clear thought was a realization that made perfect, horrible sense. I was pregnant. I hadn't known. It was too early for symptoms, but the marrow knew, the collective knew, and now I understood why the integration was happening so fast. The Chen line must continue. The weakness in the males makes the females essential. Each generation, the marrow grows stronger. I wasn't just joining the collective. I was bringing the next generation with me. The house settled around me with satisfaction, and somewhere in the walls, 100 Chen women whispered their welcome. 7 nights. I'd only lasted 4. But then, I was always an overachiever, just like grandmother. My twin sister Emma died when we were 7. At least, that's what my parents told me for 25 years. Car accident, instant, no suffering, closed casket. I remember the funeral, the small white coffin, the way Mom couldn't stop crying, and Dad just stared at nothing. I remember missing her like a lost limb. We were identical twins, the kind who had their own language, who knew what the other was thinking, who couldn't sleep without the other in the room. After she died, I spent years talking to her anyway, pretending she was just out of sight, just in the next room, just about to come back. The calls from my sister Sarah started 3 weeks ago. Voicemails at first, rambling, and increasingly frantic. "Jess, it's Sarah. I'm at grandmother's house. Something's wrong here, really wrong. Call me back." "The walls are breathing, Jess. I know how that sounds, but I can hear them, in and out, like lungs. I found something in the 3rd floor, about our family, about what we are. Don't come here. Whatever you do, don't come here." The last voicemail was just breathing. Heavy, labored breathing that went on for 3 minutes before cutting off. I hadn't spoken to Sarah in 5 years. We'd drifted after I confronted our parents about the gaps in my memory, the inconsistencies in their stories about our childhood. They'd accused me of being ungrateful, of stirring up painful memories. Sarah had taken their side. She always did. But those voicemails, Sarah sounded terrified. And something else, she sounded like she was changing. I drove to Maine on a Thursday morning, despite every instinct telling me not to. The address was easy to find. Marrow House was apparently a local landmark. The gas station attendant gave me a strange look when I asked for directions. "You're one of the Chen girls," he said. It wasn't a question. "Your grandmother delivered me 43 years ago. Delivered half the county back in her day. Strange woman, but gifted. You have her look." "You knew my grandmother?" He nodded slowly. Everyone knew Miss Eleanor, and her mother before her, and her mother before that. Chen women have been birthing babies in this county for over a century, always at the house. Always. He paused, seeming to catch himself. Well, you'll be wanting to get there before dark. Road gets tricky. The house was exactly as I remembered it from my few childhood visits, though I was surprised I remembered it at all. My parents had always said we'd never been to Maine, that grandmother Eleanor was estranged from the family. But standing in that driveway, I could suddenly recall playing in the garden with Emma, grandmother watching us with those sharp, dark eyes. Emma! The memory hit me like a physical blow. Emma had been here. We'd both been here. The summer we were 7. Sarah's car was in the driveway, covered in fallen pine needles. The front door was unlocked. Sarah? My voice echoed through the foyer. The house smelled like a hospital, that distinct mix of disinfectant and something organic. Sarah, it's Jess. No answer, but I could hear something, a rhythmic sound, like breathing, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I found Sarah's things in a second-floor bedroom, her suitcase open on the bed, clothes scattered as if she'd been searching for something. Her phone was on the nightstand, battery dead, but it was the notebook beside it that made my hands shake. Page after page of frantic writing, starting neat and becoming increasingly erratic. Day 1. The house remembers me. I remember the house. Day 2. Found grandmother's journals. We're not who we think we are. Day 3. The 3rd floor. God, the 3rd floor. Constance is still here. Day 4. The marrow knows. It's always known. I can feel it moving. Day 4. Later. I'm pregnant. How did the house know before I did? Day 4, final. Integration beginning. Can feel the others. So many others. Jess was right about Emma. Emma never left. Emma is... The entry cut off mid-sentence, a long scratch across the page as if the pen had been dragged away. My childhood bedroom was at the end of the hall. I pushed open the door, and the memories crashed over me in a wave. This is where Emma and I had slept that last summer. Twin beds with matching quilts, the window overlooking the garden where we'd played, the closet where we'd hidden from... From what? The memory slipped away like water, but there was something in the closet now. A child's drawing, taped to the back wall. 2 stick figures holding hands, labeled in crayon, Jess and Emma, together forever. I reached out to touch it, and the wall behind it gave way. Not broke, gave way, like pressing against flesh. I jerked back, but not before I'd felt the warmth behind the wall, the pulse. You kept trying to remember. A woman stood in the doorway, my grandmother, but not. She wore grandmother Eleanor's face, but the expression was wrong, the posture too fluid, too young. You were always the difficult one, she continued, stepping into the room. Asking questions, fighting the forgetting. We had to work so hard to keep you away. Where's Sarah? Sarah's here. Sarah's part of us now. Just like Eleanor. Just like Constance. Just like... She smiled, and it was terrible. Just like Emma. The name hit me like a physical blow. Emma's dead. Oh, Jessica! Sweet, stubborn Jessica. Emma was never dead. Emma was chosen. The walls began to pulse visibly, the wallpaper rippling like skin. And then I heard it, a giggle, high, childish, heartbreakingly familiar. Jess! Jess! The voice came from inside the walls. Jess, I missed you so much. I stumbled backward, my legs hitting the bed. No, this isn't real. Tell her, Emma, the grandmother thing said. Tell her what really happened. The wall began to bulge outward, and something pressed against it from inside. The shape of a small hand, a child's hand. We were playing, Emma's voice continued, muffled but unmistakably hers. In the garden, Grandmother was teaching us the game, about the marrow, about the gift. But you got scared. You ran to Mommy and Daddy. The memory surfaced like a bubble of oil. The garden, Grandmother with her medical bag, the needles, the way Emma had gone so still, so quiet, her eyes rolling back as something was extracted from her spine. You told, Emma's voice turned petulant. You told, and they tried to take us away. But I was already changing, already becoming. So Grandmother kept me, told them I died, let them take you. You were 7, I whispered. I was perfect, Emma corrected. Young marrow integrates best. I got to stay with Grandmother, got to join the others, got to become part of the house. And now Sarah's here too. We can play again, all 3 of us. The hand pressed harder against the wall, and I could see the outline of an arm, a shoulder, a face trying to push through. The face of a 7-year-old girl, perfectly preserved, trapped in the walls for 25 years.
Don't you want to play, Jess?
Through the hallway, down the stairs, the house seeming to shift around me. Doors that should have led outside led to other rooms. Stairs that should have gone down went up. And everywhere, the breathing of the walls and the whispers of the collected dead. I found myself in the kitchen, gasping for breath. The window showed the garden where Emma and I had played, where everything had gone wrong. But something was different about the view. Someone was standing by the old oak tree. Sarah, but like Grandmother, wrong. She stood too still, her pregnancy now visible, her belly distended far beyond what should have been possible in 3 weeks. She turned toward the window, and I saw her face, part Sarah, part something older, features shifting between my sister and our ancestors. Jess, she mouthed, and I could hear her voice in my head. It doesn't hurt, not really. It's like coming home. The kitchen door swung open. The grandmother thing entered, followed by others, women of various ages, all wearing faces I recognized from family photos, all moving with that same wrong fluidity. The Chen women always come home, they said in unison. The marrow calls to marrow, blood to blood. You can run, but you can't change what you are. I grabbed a knife from the counter. Stay back. They laughed, a sound like wind through empty rooms. Oh, Jessica, always fighting, just like your mother. My mother, the thought crystallized. Mom knew. That's why we left. That's why we never came back. She tried to break the chain, Grandmother acknowledged. Tried to save you both. But she only managed to delay the inevitable. The marrow knows its own. And now, with Sarah integrated and pregnant, the next generation is secure. You're just a bonus. The walls began to close in, literally. The kitchen shrinking, the ceiling lowering. I could hear Emma giggling somewhere in the walls, could see faces pressing against the wallpaper. Dozens of Chen women, all preserved, all waiting. Join us, Jess, Emma's voice pleaded. I've been so lonely. Even with all the others, I've been waiting for you. We're twins. We're supposed to be together." The knife felt useless in my hand. How do you fight a house? How do you fight your own blood? But then I remembered something. Mom's last words to me before she died of cancer 2 years ago. I'd thought she was delirious, rambling about the past. "Fire cleanses," she'd whispered. "Sometimes the only way to break a chain is to destroy every link." The kitchen. Gas stove. Old house. I moved fast, turning all the burners without lighting them. The grandmother thing realized what I was doing a second too late. "Stop her!" Multiple voices, but they were bound by the house, part of it. They moved like the house moved, powerful but slow. I backed toward the door, flicking my lighter. Let them go. Let Sarah and Emma go. They are us. We are them. You can't separate water from the ocean. Then I'll evaporate the ocean. I threw the lighter and dove through the door as the kitchen exploded. The fire spread faster than should have been possible, as if the house itself was flammable. The screaming started immediately. Not one voice, but dozens. All the Chen women collected over a century, their preserved consciousness experiencing destruction. I made it to the garden before the second explosion. The house was fully engulfed now, 100-year-old wood burning like it had been waiting for this moment. In the flames, I could see shapes writhing, not quite human, not quite house, caught between states. "Jess!" I turned to see Sarah stumbling out of the smoke. But it wasn't Sarah anymore. The heat was melting whatever preservation had been done. She aged decades with each step, her skin sloughing off, revealing something underneath that might have been muscle or might have been wood. "What did you do?" she screamed, her voice a mixture of Sarah and Eleanor and Constance and others. "We were eternal. We were together." She collapsed before she could reach me, her body unable to maintain cohesion outside the burning house. I watched my sister dissolve into something between flesh and timber, her final expression one of betrayal. The house burned through the night. I watched from the edge of the property, unable to leave, unable to look away. Sometimes in the flames, I could see Emma, still 7, still perfect, reaching out to me through the fire. Her mouth formed words I couldn't hear over the roar of destruction. By morning, nothing remained but charred foundation stones and the smell of burnt medicine. The fire department said it was the strangest fire they'd ever seen. The house had burned so completely that even the basement was gone, as if the earth itself had opened up to swallow the remains. They found no bodies. The official report blamed old wiring and suggested that Sarah and I had never been there at all. Our cars had mysteriously vanished. There was no record of Sarah inheriting the house. No record of the house at all, actually. As far as the county was concerned, that lot had always been empty. I drove home in a rental car, my own vehicle having disappeared like everything else connected to the house. But I wasn't unchanged. In the rearview mirror, I could see the mark on my neck, a small hand-shaped bruise where Emma had touched me through the wall. It hasn't faded in the 3 months since. Sometimes, late at night, I hear her voice. Not from the walls, I've checked obsessively, pressing my hands against every surface in my apartment. The voice comes from inside, from my bones, from the marrow we shared in the womb. "You killed us," she whispers. "You killed all of us. But twins are special, Jess. Twins share more than just blood. The bruise spreads a little more each day. I've seen doctors. They can't explain it. The skin there is different, thicker, with a texture like old wood. And sometimes when I press on it, I swear I can feel a pulse that isn't my own. I've left instructions with my lawyer. When I die, and I will die before this thing spreads too far, I want to be cremated immediately. No viewing, no delay, nothing left to preserve. The Chen line dies with me. But sometimes, in the early morning hours, when the bruise aches and Emma's voice is strongest, I wonder if that's even possible. Marrow makes blood. Blood carries memory. And memory, the Chen women learned, can be preserved in more than just flesh. I've started avoiding mirrors. My reflection looks too much like Emma these days. Like Sarah in those final moments. Like all the Chen women who came before, Mom said. But some stains go deeper than flesh. Some chains are forged in the marrow itself. And twins are forever.
And there you have it, dear listeners. 2 sisters, 1 house, and a family legacy written in bone and blood. The Marrow house is gone now, reduced to ash and memory. But as Jessica learned, some inheritances can't be refused, and some connections can't be severed. They say the lot where the house stood remains empty to this day. Nothing will grow there. The earth itself seems to reject any attempt at building. And sometimes, on quiet nights, locals claim they can hear the sound of breathing coming from the ground itself. The Chen family line has ended, officially. But marrow runs deep, and blood remembers what the mind forgets. Thank you for joining us tonight. Remember to check your family history. Question the gaps in your childhood memories. And if you ever inherit a house with strange conditions attached, perhaps it's better to let some legacies die. Until next time, dear listeners, sleep tight.